Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Dynasty Football Podcast. I'm Ryan Wormeli, joined by Scott Bogman and Pat Fitzmaurice. We are here with a 3-round Superflex rookie mock draft. This is pretty much our favorite type of show to do because it requires very little prep, except for knowing which players we want to talk about. And we get to kind of see what the other people are thinking, see, what guy I'm going to reach on, what guy's going to fall too low, all that fun stuff. We'll react at the end, kind of give you some big takeaways, but we're going to go through, like I said, 3 rounds, 12 team essentially mock draft here of the rookies. Now, we did one of these Fitz in, I think it was late January. Actually, it was either late January or early February. So it's been over a month since we've done one of these episodes. How do you feel like your view of the rookie landscape has changed in that month plus?
Honestly, Worm, I don't know if there has been a major sea change with any of the guys or any of the players. Like the testing influenced some things, and it's going to move some guys up or down slightly, both at their positions and sort of where they rank overall, but not a lot. I think we kind of, in a lot of cases, knew who was going to run fast and test well at the combine. But then again, there were some surprises. I didn't expect Eli Stowers to vertical jump 45 inches. So, but maybe, I don't know. I don't know if free agency has done enough to impact where some, how that might affect the rankings. Like we saw a number of potential spots in the top 10 sort of closed off to Jeremiah Love with the signings of running backs in New Orleans, Kansas City. So I don't know. That's not going to move the needle. It's not going to push Jeremiah Love down to 103 or 104, unfortunately, for anyone who's holding those picks in rookie drafts.
Well, on Love specifically, and of course we'll get to him very early in the mock, Bogman, I kind of, my takeaway from the Chiefs and the Saints signing like fairly expensive running backs is they might not even think Love is getting to the 8th pick. Like he's going top 7. He's going to Tennessee or New York or Washington. I think those are probably the 3 before pick 8 that would make the most sense. That was my kind of takeaway is this guy's going to be a top 7 pick.
Yeah, I think the one that surprised me the most in terms of the running backs was the Cardinals, because I thought, hey, the Cardinals are sitting at 3. It's not a great draft. They have a lot of needs along the defensive line and the offensive line. So maybe they would take Jeremiah Love because he's clearly the best player, right? But they went and signed Tyler Algier. They restructured James Conner. So that backfield is going to be really annoying with Algier, Conner, and Benson there all year. So we're not going to throw Jeremiah Love into that mix. My fear at this point is that the Giants take him and it just makes Cam Scattaboo Tyler Algier with Bijan Robinson, right? So I don't think it matters where Jeremiah Love goes. I think he's the RB1 like Jahmyr Gibbs. So, the spots closing up are more like you said, Worm, I think, because Casey was like, well, he's not falling back to us. Someone will either trade in front of us or, one of those early teams will take him. So I think you're right on.
Yeah. We'll get to more about Love here at the top of the mock draft. I do want to let everybody know first before we dive in, if you want a chance to win a Colston Loveland signed Bears mini helmet for free, courtesy of our friends at pristineauction.com, all you have to do is subscribe to the Fantasy Pros Dynasty YouTube channel right now. Drop a comment below on any of our videos, and that is it. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can know when new videos are up and to claim your prize. All right, guys, we can kick things off here at the very top. We are mixing up the order. Last time, I believe Fitz went first. This time, Bogman will have the first pick. Fitz went with the quarterback here. This is Superflex last time. Are you going with the quarterback, Bogman, or are you going a different direction?
Nah, I'm going to take Jeremiah Love. I think in a vacuum, all things being the same, Jeremiah Love is the most can't-miss prospect in this class. The math, a lot of the times in your league or your just team math where you have no quarterback, there's none in sight to acquire, might force your hand to take Mendoza in some of those spots, and that's perfectly reasonable. But I think in a vacuum, all things being equal, Jeremiah Love is my 1-1 in this class because I think he's just as can't miss as they come.
Let me ask you this. Let's pretend that he's going in the top 7, and it's one of those 3 teams where I said that makes sense. Because, right, like, it wouldn't make sense to go to Cleveland with Judkins there. It wouldn't make sense to go to Arizona, like you said. Let's pretend it's one of Tennessee, New York, or Washington. Who would you most want it to be? I think we agree that New York's probably our least favorite just because it's the only one with another pretty good running back there already. But who's your favorite of the 3?
I think Tennessee would be my favorite, and it's because the offensive line is improved. I think Cam Ward is good. He just needs some targets. They went and got Wandale, which, my initial love for Shamiri DK probably dwindled when they added Wandale Robinson there. But I think if Jeremiah Love goes to Tennessee, he's easily the best offensive player that they have, and he's going to be relied upon, kind of like Christian McCaffrey's relied upon, right? He's going to get an overwhelming amount of touches in his first season if he ends up there. So that would be my favorite scenario because I think they would really lean on him from day one.
What's your favorite spot for Love Fitz now that KC and New Orleans are off the board?
I don't know if he gets there, but I'd like to see him go to Washington. I just think the Jaden Daniels, Jeremiah Love pairing would be really interesting and could allow for some really fun RPO stuff for Washington. And the run defenses in that division. I mean, the Giants, Dallas, Philadelphia, which was surprisingly shabby against the run in spots last season. Ask the Bears, who ran all over him in that Black Friday game last year. So, yeah, I think that would be pretty exciting, but does he get to 7? Maybe not.
Second pick off the board, Fitz, probably the easiest decision of the whole draft.
Yeah, it's Fernando Mendoza, and I do think it's a one-quarterback draft, with apologies to members of the Ty Simpson fan club. Mendoza's going to be the number 1 pick. He's going to the Raiders, who are already feathering the nest. They backed up the Brinks truck to Tyler Linderbaum's house to get him as center. They got him, I know Jalen Naylor isn't going to make anyone's palms sweaty, but he was a nice ad, and a lot of people, even before he signed, talked about him being sort of an under-the-radar, underrated free agent wide receiver. So Mendoza's presumably going to start, if not in week 1, just a matter of weeks before they put him in there. And I think he's a really good prospect. Love his processing accuracy and willingness to stand in and take a hit, and a guy who can escape the pocket if he needs to. And I don't think he's going to make a big impact as a runner, but could add a little bit of value with his legs.
Assuming he gets the chance to start Bogman, which, you always hear teams at the top talk about, we don't want to rush him into it, but clearly at some point pretty early on, he's going to be starting. Assuming that is the case, this is a pretty good fantasy setup to be stepping into. You have an offensive play calling head coach that we have a degree of trust in. You are improving the offensive line. Obviously, the incredible overpay of Tyler Linderbaum being a big part of that. They're adding to the skill position receivers. You already have Brock Bowers. You already have the running back in Genti. Mendoza might not be on the same level as some of the really high-end quarterback prospects we've had in recent years, but this feels like a pretty decent spot to be stepping in, and it's a pretty bad defense still, which means you would expect some shootouts. So maybe a pretty good first season from him, assuming he's starting.
The Ravens fan saying Tyler Linderbaum is overpaid.
I'm so sure I'm going out on a limb here. They've overpaid the previous record for centers by 50%. People were talking about are they going to be willing to go to 21, 22 million? And the Raiders spent 27 million.
I bet you won't be so overpaid when some of those snaps are terrible when Lamar's in the shotgun.
No, listen, Linderbaum's a really good player, but come on, you can't reset the market by 50% and not.
You're correct. I just wanted to jab you a little bit, Worm. Look, you guys got Max Crosby, man. I have to jab you a little bit. Mendoza is everything you'd want coming into the NFL, I feel like. And it's not just, he's not a perfect prospect in terms of he's Peyton Manning with this laser arm and, unbelievable processing brain and everything, but he's so good. And he has just the best attitude you'd want any football player to have, let alone a quarterback. So it's a real hard call, I feel like, between Jeremiah Love and Fernando Mendoza. But I just think in terms of can't miss, I can't make a mistake here, Jeremiah Love at 1-1 is the guy. But Mendoza at 1-2 is great, and he's going to go 1-1 in a lot of Superflex drafts. So
you think so?
Yeah, I do. I just think that a lot of people don't want to wait a full year to get a quarterback. And, Mendoza is a very, very good prospect. I would say he's the number 2 can't miss in this class behind Jeremiah Love. And I know that's saying a lot because the quarterback position is difficult and there are some good wide receivers here. But if I'm betting on one guy to have success that isn't Jeremiah Love because of his attitude, because of the way he plays and the way he prepares, it would be Mendoza for me.
I agree with you on that. I just don't know if the dynasty community at large agrees with that. And I just worry that maybe after seeing Cam Ward struggle for all but about the final 3 weeks of the regular season last year, that maybe gives some people pause a little bit on considering Mendoza 101.
But do you think if Mendoza was in last year's class or Cam Ward was in this class, it would still be Mendoza number one?
I think
right?
so. I think Mendoza's a better prospect.
Me too. And I like Cam Ward a lot. But
I do feel like
better.
If you're picking first overall, you probably have a pretty bad team and don't feel like unless you just like had really bad injury luck, you probably feel like you're not that close to competing. And if that's the case, it is definitely smarter to take the quarterback rather than the running back with a shorter shelf life. I mean, arguably, I guess you could say the smarter thing would be to trade the pick and try and see if you can get a haul for a contender who wants to trade up for Love. But if you are picking first and you're sticking with the pick, I could see people saying I like Love better, but Mendoza just gives me the longer runway to get my team good again. Obviously talking Superflex only. So let's go to the third pick, which is me. I'm taking Carnell Tate. Now, we have talked a lot about picks 3, 4, and 5 are going to be these 3 wide receivers: Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson. We've started filling out this sheet as we're doing the show. I can see that is what the next 3 picks are. I won't spoil the order just yet, but I do want to ask you guys, I'm taking Tate. I'm not scared off by the 40 time or anything like that. I still think he's the best receiver in this class. There's a chance that landing spot will change my opinion of these 3. But for now, before we have that landing spot information, I'm just sticking with the guy who I like the best of the group coming in, and that was Carnell Tate. Fitz, would you have gone with Tate of these 3 receivers, or would you have gone with one of the other guys?
I would have gone with Tate, but there is very little separation for me between these guys. And were there no injury concerns with Jordan Tyson, I would probably take him number 1. I like his film the most, even though there's all sorts of film of Tate making spectacular plays downfield. A nagging little concern with Tate, how often was he doing it against the opponent's top cornerback? Because when you played Ohio State last year, priority 1 was stopping Jeremiah Smith. But then again, you watch Carnell Tate and how consistently he made plays downfield and how good his ball skills are. I don't want to make that like a big nagging concern for me, but it is something to wonder about. I just don't think he was seeing necessarily the Big Ten's best cover corners every week. But at the same time, his film is pretty convincing.
Bogman, who would have been first for you of these 3? Would it have been Tate, or would it have been the guy that you take here at 4?
No, it's Tate, and I think the argument that you guys put forward is the correct one, right? And Tate over Tyson because of the injury stuff. I am a little afraid of Tyson with the injury stuff, and Tate over Mekhi Lemon because I think Mekhi Lemon is kind of forced into a slot role. So I just think Carnell Tate is probably your best prospect here.
So Tate goes first of this group of 3 receivers. Bogman, who do you take it for?
I'm going to take Mekhi Lemon, and it is the injury stuff that concerns me about Jordan Tyson. I think Fitzy is right. We don't have those concerns about Jordan Tyson against Carnell Tate because there wasn't a Jeremiah Smith playing with Jordan Tyson. He had the best competition every single week on him, and he continuously torched them, right? So I think Jordan Tyson is an excellent wide receiver, but it's going to be Mekhi Lemon here because of the injury stuff with Jordan Tyson. I just don't really like having injury-prone players. And again, we may not know if this is look, my hamstring hurts, I don't want to ruin my draft stock, so I'm not going to play, versus is this guy, going to have soft tissue stuff for his entire career and be questionable a lot. So for me, I think Mekhi Lemon's great. He's so fast. He gets in and out of those breaks. And again, the guy that played at USC, so it's a little helmet scouting, but it's just hard to not see Amon-Ra St. Brown there in some capacity. That is the archetype that he aspires to be. It's not what he is coming in, but you can see flashes of it. So it's going to be Mekhi Lemon for me here.
Tate 3, Lemon 4. Fitz, I already mentioned that you take the third receiver here, Jordan Tyson at 5. I agree with you that he would probably be number 1 for me if the injury concern was just totally not a factor at all. Again, it's very close, not a lot of separation between these 3, so that's enough to push him to the back of the line, in my opinion. amongst these three, but like you're getting a bit of an injury discount here, getting him down at 5. Because if he was fully healthy, a wide receiver like this in a dynasty rookie draft is not lasting to 5.
Yeah, and just for the full background on anyone wondering about what we're talking about with the injury history. So in 2022, which will have been 4 years ago by the time we hit fall, major knee injury towards ACL, MCL, and PCL. And so missed most of the 23 season because of that. Has also had hamstring and I think he had a collarbone injury too. So the hamstring thing was a concern, but it's not like he's been plagued by hamstring issues like every year since he came back from the knee injury. I think he has the best size of these three guys. Well, he does, 6'2", 200. So like Tate is kind of he's pretty thinly built and Lemon's a smaller receiver. Tyson is good size, can play any of the receiver positions. Really good route runner who consistently gets separation. I think his ball skills are right there with Carnell Tate's. I mean, this guy's a rebounder. His brother, in fact, a first-round pick of the Cleveland Cavaliers, Jalen Tyson. So good bloodlines with this family for sure. And one thing I think the NFL teams are really going to like about him, like he's kind of a demon as a blocker because he has been learning that skill under the tutelage of Hines Ward, who is the ASU receivers coach. So maybe the most complete of these three players. And I was just checking mock draft database before we came on here just to see where these guys have been going in mock drafts, and the consensus big board based on the mock drafts aggregated by mock draft database have Tate 9, Lemon 12, Tyson 13. So there is not a lot of separation here. And much like last year when I made a little bit of money betting that Colston Loveland was going to be the first tight end taken, I can't wait to see what the odds are when they come out. I don't think DraftKings has them posted yet on who the first receiver will be. Like if I could get 4-1 or better on Tyson, I'm all over it.
So that's the first 5 picks. I think very, little surprise there. Pick 6, you could go a couple different directions. I am on the clock here. I'm going to take the first tight end off the board. I'm going to go with Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon, to clarify. Just incredibly athletic. We knew he was athletic, but like record-breaking athleticism numbers at the combine. I could have easily gone with one of these couple of receivers that I assume are going to go next here, but I'm kind of banking on the fact with this pick that I think Sadiq's draft stock will rise, and I'm just going to be given how the last couple of years has gone. I know he's not the same level prospect as like Colston Loveland was, you just mentioned, Fitz, but a tight end who's going to go in that like middle to first round range has been a better bet in recent years than it had been previously, and I want to kind of just bet on the guy who's like crazy athletic, and I think will probably end up in a pretty good landing spot. So I'll take Sadiq here 6. I think I easily could have gone with a receiver, but I go with the tight end. What do you think about that quickly, Fitz? Is that too early for the first tight end? Would you have gone with a receiver instead?
No, I don't think so. I do think there's a sort of a gap between the top 3 receivers and then the next group, and I'm fine with having Sadiq be the guy to bridge that gap rather than just keep rattling off the wide receivers. He's a really good prospect. The main issue is whether he is going to be a 3-down tight end. Like he is a better blocker than Eli Stowers for sure. And Eli Stowers is sort of light at 239, but Sadiq only checked in at 241, just 2 pounds more than Stowers. I think he's regarded to have better blocking technique and put more into it than Eli Stowers does. So maybe he can be an every down tight end, but like, if he's not an every down tight end, then you run into the Dalton Kincaid problem where he's not playing every snap. And while he's making some plays as a receiver, he's just not on the field enough to produce on a consistent basis.
Bogman, we are halfway through the first round. You're on the clock with pick 7.
Yeah, I'm going to take Denzel Boston here. A tough call because I wasn't sure where you were going to go, Worm. So if you were going to take Denzel Boston or another wide receiver, I was going to take Sadiq. So I do think that is the correct choice in my opinion. So, but Denzel Boston here, I love this guy. I feel like he's everything we wanted Keon Coleman to be. So I know that's a dangerous name to compare him to, but they're both contested catch guys. They don't get a lot of separation, but 13 contested catches. Denzel Boston got 10 of them last season. So very fast, a good possession guy in most dynasty leagues or PPR. So I just think, depending on landing spot, Denzel Boston should be a very good prospect. And depending on where he goes, he could see a lot of targets early. So Denzel Boston here at 7.
So Fitz, there's kind of the tier 1 of receivers, which is 3 names, and there's kind of the tier 2 of receivers, which is sort of settled into 3 names here: Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion, and Omar Cooper Jr. Of those 3, if you're picking on the clock at 7, sneaks off the board, is Boston the guy you would have gone with, or would you go with a different direction of this group of receivers?
I think I would have gone with Boston just because of the size, and I think he is going to be someone's plug-and-play X receiver. I'm not totally sold that he's going to hit, but I like that he has some really good agility for a big guy and a little bit of route running savvy. So he's not just a big, like poor man Mike Evans who just wins jump balls. Actually, I don't want to make that comparison because it's not like Mike Evans can't run routes. I'm not trying to diss Mike Evans, but Denzel Boston isn't just a guy who can go up and get it. He's not a Kelvin Benjamin. He is a dude who can get himself open, surprising speed for a big man. I like him. I am curious to see if he goes in the first round of the NFL draft or not. I know. I'm just not totally convinced there are going to be 6 receivers or 5 receivers going in the first round. We'll see about that.
Who are you taking at pick 8 here, Fitz?
I'm going to take Omar Cooper, and I am emboldened by where I've been seeing him in big boards, on big boards of people like Daniel Jeremiah and Todd McShay and people I respect as talent evaluators in the media. And the fact that Cooper is now going inside the top 20, top 21 in a lot of mock drafts. And I watched a lot of this guy last fall, and I think he is such a gamer. Just so good after the catch. So good at like focusing in on making tough catches when he knows he's going to get hit as soon as he gets the ball in his hands. Just kind of did a little bit of everything. I know his numbers were not overwhelming for Indiana, but Indiana had a lot of really good pass catchers and also beat the heck out of a lot of teams and had the luxury of being able to run the ball a lot with their 2 running backs. So Cooper's just a baller, man. And, in a draft where things thin out pretty quickly as far as talent, like I'm willing to bet on this guy because I love his spirit, man. He's a good ball player.
At the 9th pick, I'll take Casey Concepcion. Bogman, do you feel like it's going to be more consensus that Concepcion is ahead of Cooper, or do you think by the time we get to April and May that it will be kind of Cooper not as a 6th receiver but a little bit higher?
No, I think Cooper is pushing into this group. I think that's what's happening right now. So like you guys mentioned, it's Tate, it's Lemon, it's Tyson for sure, then a bit of a gap. And it has been Boston Concepcion there without a third. But I think Omar Cooper right now is making his way into that group. So he could be at the head of it, honestly, by the time we get there. I wouldn't be shocked by it. We've seen a lot of mocks move him up into the first, a lot of him going to Pittsburgh, which I wouldn't hate, especially after the Pittman edition. But I think that this group is the next 3, but I do think Omar Cooper is forcing his way in here.
Feels like a somewhat clear-ish top 9, at least in kind of consensus rankings at this point, different order for different people. But, you have the 6 receivers that we've mentioned so far, Sadiq, Mendoza, and Love at the other positions. I don't know if you agree. It feels to me like it was pretty easy to get this first 9 out here. Bogman, walk me through your decision at pick 10.
Yeah, at pick 10, I think you are correct. I think this is kind of how it should go through the first 9, depending on, of course, landing spot and all that good stuff. But number 10, I look at the wide receivers. There's a lot I like here. There's a lot of running backs I like here. So for me, it comes down to, do I want Ty Simpson more? Do I want Eli Stowers more? And for me, it's a super flex mock. So give me Ty Simpson. I think if there is someone that sneaks into the first round at quarterback, I think it will be Ty Simpson. And I do think that some team is going to fall in love with him. And again, we mentioned that the reason these guys tend to go into the back of the first round, like Jackson Dart, instead of earlier in the second, is because you get that extra year of control with a quarterback. So I think Ty Simpson goes at the end of the first via a team back there that likes him or a trade up back into the end of the first to get him. And I think that just, again, we talk about the math, right? And Superflex, and there's not a lot of value here, but Ty Simpson is one of those guys. So I think just because there's so many wide receivers I like and there's so many running backs I like, I feel like I can wait to take a good one. I will take Ty Simpson here.
I've said this before, but like, I just think strategically, like from a philosophical standpoint, like I missed on Bo Nix going late in the first rounds of rookie drafts because I didn't like the player very much. I missed Jackson Dart and Tyler Shuck, who seemed like, decent options at this point. Like, even if you don't like the player, if there's other people you like, fine. Like, you don't have to just force the quarterback. But like,
Sure.
We're in an area of this draft where it is weaker, right? There's not a ton of depth here. Taking the quarterback and saying, if it works out, this is going to be huge value. And if it doesn't, like, I'm not that much of a believer in some of these other guys anyway. I think it's just smart when you get to this point in the draft. So, like, I mean, this is, of course, barring him falling in the NFL draft and kind of changing our perspective. But right now, as QB2, like, I think it's perfectly fine, even if you're not a huge Ty Simpson fan. Pat, you're on the clock with pick 11.
All right, I'm going to go with Eli Stowers. And, Boggs was considering him there. And obviously the testing was just overwhelmingly impressive at the combine. 4.5 speed, 45.5-inch vertical jump, 11-foot 3-inch broad jump. This guy was a Texas State high jump champion in high school. And yeah, Stowers put up really good numbers for Vanderbilt the last couple of seasons in the SEC against top competition. And what kind of excites me about him is that he has only been playing the tight end position for like 3 years. He was actually a quarterback recruit at Texas A&M before changing positions, I think, at his second stop at New Mexico State, then goes to Vanderbilt for his junior year and just flourishes. So I'm really excited about his future. But there is that issue with Eli Stowers really not being an inline tight end. So when you're kind of a hybrid like that, I mentioned the Dalton Kincaid problem where Kincaid, I think last year he played less than half of the Bills' offensive snaps. So while he was really efficient, just the lack of playing time kind of kept him from being one of the top tight ends and might sort of forever limit his ceiling. I do worry about that a little bit with Eli Stowers. But, man, I think this guy's going to be impactful, even if it's in kind of a part-time role.
Yeah, Bogman considered Stowers at 10. I would have taken him at 12. Fitz does get him here at 11. I mean, we talk about how athletic Sadiq is, and Stowers, like, very much not far behind in terms of just, like, elite record-setting athleticism at the combine. So, very impressive from him. I don't want to be the one to break the seal on RB2 here. I don't love a lot of my options on the clock here at 12.
This is the worst pick.
This is pretty brutal. I think what I'm going to do is, because I'm torn, I'm certainly not taking the third tight end. I'm not taking the third quarterback. So it's going to be running back or receiver. Since I'm torn between the two, I think just general good practice is to lean towards the receiver if you don't feel good about either. This could very easily change. There may be a running back that kind of presents themselves as the obvious pick here after the NFL draft if somebody gets like surprisingly good draft capital or goes to a landing spot where we're really interested in their opportunity. Since that hasn't happened yet, I'm going to take Elijah Surratt, who I think right now is my wide receiver 7. I'm open to that changing, again, based on landing spot or just thinking about it more the next few weeks. The top 6 receivers feels pretty easy. Wide receiver 7, and we talked about this last week on our rookie ranking show. You can go in different directions here. The consensus ranking is Surratt as of right now. Now, ECR does have several running backs still ahead of him in the overall ranking, so I'm kind of bypassing them in that regard. But if I'm going in the direction of a receiver rather than taking one of the running backs, then I think Surratt is the way I want to go as of right now. I'm not saying this with my full chest, right? Like I could see this going in a different direction here in the coming weeks, particularly in April. Before we get to round 2, I want to let everybody know that our Dynasty Draft Simulator lets you complete a mock in minutes with no waiting between picks. Customize your league settings to match your league's exact format. Premium subscribers can test trade scenarios by mocking with their traded draft picks, prepare for rookie drafts and Dynasty startup drafts in one place. Use the Dynasty Draft Simulator to dominate your rookie draft today at fantasypros.com/simulator. Let us know in the comments who you would have taken here at pick 12, because I do think so far that's maybe the kind of most difficult spot we've been at here in the first round. So let us know what you would have done differently. Bogman, kick us off here. Round 2 at 201. What are you doing?
Yeah, for me, it's going to be Jadarian Price. And it's funny. I think, Fitzy mentioned this in the last show that we did where, just going over our rookie rankings, would you have 10 wide receivers before your second running back, right? I had, I think, 9 wide receivers, but I do think this is about the right spot for Jadarian Price. And, from the early, we've seen a day and a half of free agency, and even before that, we saw a lot of running back spots dry up, right? The Texans traded for David Montgomery. The Chiefs signed Ken Walker. Even Pittsburgh, Rico Dowdle there. Kenny Gainwell went to Tampa Bay for a backup. So, but there are still some spots left. Minnesota's still looking. ETN signed with the Saints, so Jacksonville could be looking. And these are still spots that could be signed by current free agents. There's still some. So I do think it's probably a good practice most of the time to take a wide receiver. But after that initial wave, I think this is about the range. I think the wide receivers and the running backs are going to start mixing a little bit. And I think Jadarian Price, this is a dude that we hope can be a 3-down back, but we know he's a 2-down back right now. So first, second down thumper, probably still my second favorite back in this class. So it's going to be Jadarian Price here at the top of the second round.
So far, the only running backs off the board are the Notre Dame guys, Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. I get the feeling that this entire round Fitz is going to be running backs and receivers. I can't imagine the third quarterback or tight end going off the board anytime soon, given what we think about the prospects at those positions in this class. So it's going to be kind of a jumble, and I think team need will partially determine this in your real rookie drafts, right? If you just have a much stronger need at running back or receiver, you could go in different directions. I know we tend to like the depth in the receiver class better this year. But yeah, still just 2 running backs off the board, 13 picks in. You're up at 202.
I'm going to make it 2 Notre Dame players in a row with Malachi Fields. And it's sort of torn between 3 receivers here. I'm going to break the tie in favor of the 6'4.5" guy. And I know that some people were sort of dismayed that he ran a 4.61 at the combine. But look, he's 6'4.5", 217 pounds. And when you cross-index the 40 time with his weight, he still has a 72nd percentile speed score, I believe, according to playerprofiler.com. So based on his size, his speed is just fine. And this guy is a contested ball winner. Whether he can separate consistently in the NFL, we'll see. But 6'4.5" with a big wingspan and good hands, that makes him a threat to potentially score a lot of touchdowns for someone in the NFL. So that really appeals to me. I think he's another guy who's kind of just a ready-made X receiver, and he's the pick here.
I like Fields. Bogman, what do you think about Surratt and Fields being wide receiver 7 and 8 so far off the board?
I think there's just a large mix of wide receivers that can be in this group. So those 2 being up here is fine, but I think there's about 4 or 5 others that I could put into that bucket, and landing spot is going to matter a lot. So these guys going, I have no issue with at all. You guys know there's a couple dudes that I like in this range a little bit better, but I think kind of what you do at wide receiver and running back is pretty fair to a point here. So I just think there are many options right now.
I'm up with 203. I'm going to take Mike Washington Jr., obviously coming off, another guy coming off a really, really strong combine performance. He probably wouldn't have been my RB3 prior to the combine, but he would have been in the tier of guys that I would have considered there. So it's not like I'm bumping him up a tier from his great performance there, but just kind of maybe shifting around some of the names within that very large group of running backs that I think you can make a case for in this range. And I'm going to bet on his combine performance, kind of boosting his real draft stock as well, maybe giving him some better draft capital than I expected, and giving him an opportunity to get an opportunity in the NFL. So I'll take Washington here as the very athletic running back. That gets us back to Bogman at 204. By the way, Bogman, I know you have been a Washington guy. You go with a receiver here at 204. Would you still gone with a receiver, or would you have considered Washington because he was a player you already liked?
I still like a couple wide receivers ahead of the running backs here, but I think this is the correct range. I think there's two other running backs that I would put in this range, and like I said before, like a handful of wide receivers, but he was definitely one of them. Mike Washington, Emmett Johnson, Jonah Coleman, I think those are the guys that deserve to be in the next wave of running backs. I don't have anybody else in that group, but wide receivers, I think there's a lot left too. So for me, with my pick after yours, I'm going to take Chris Bell from Louisville. And this dude, I would have put Chris Bell at the top of the second group, like after those three, if he had not torn his ACL his senior season here and at the end of the season. So I do think, long term, you don't typically want to draft a guy coming off of a leg injury like that, but I think Chris Bell is better than this group of wide receivers that are left on the board, and I think he would be going much higher had he not had the injury. Now, is he a risk because of the injury? Of course. Anyone coming in the NFL with a major injury is a bit of a risk, but I believe in him. I think he's going to be a great wide receiver at the next level, and I think we're getting a little bit of a discount because of this injury. So Chris Bell for me here.
Can I just ask you something about Chris Bell, Boggs? I mean, do you agree? So I know there's some people who think he's a little bit raw, like size and speed combination, one of the best in this wide receiver class for sure. I mean, is it mostly about that for you, or do you think he's kind of a complete player? Because I know that when I watched him in some Louisville games last fall, I was a little underwhelmed, to be honest.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think that, we saw him coming off of his career at NC State before that too. So working with a new quarterback who was also new to Louisville. So I think that there's a little bit of that, but I don't think that there's a guy that matches his size and speed. And again, is that in question because of the injury? Of course it is. But I think, I'm buying upside here in a class that's weak. So give me Chris Bell's upside.
Fitz, you're up with 205.
All right, I'm going to take Jeremy Bernard, the wide receiver from Alabama. Good combination of size and speed. I want to say he's like 6'1", 206, ran a 4.48 at the combine. And he was a kind of a versatile weapon for Alabama. I think he played some in the slot, some outside, some in the backfield. So he's one of the guys I have in this kind of confusing group, along with Malachi Fields and one other guy who hasn't been taken yet.
I like Bernard. I would have taken Bernard with my next pick if he got to me. I think since he didn't get to me, I'm actually going to go back to the running back. Well, I really liked Jonah Coleman at Washington, and I don't know what he's going to be in the NFL, but I think there's a role for him. And sometimes when I bet on those types of guys in the past, it hasn't worked out when I'm just like, not even calling him a floor guy over a ceiling guy. I mean, I don't think there's a ton of ceiling in the class in general amongst the running backs, but I think there's a role for him in the NFL. Again, he was really productive at Washington, and he was either my RB2 or 3 kind of going into this process in January and early February. And so middle of the second round, just on the chance that he gets an opportunity here, I'm going to take Coleman. So like I said, I could have gone receiver. I would have gone receiver if Bernard was there, but I go Coleman.
I think it's fair to say that he's sort of the floor option among these RB2 candidates. It seems like he has the most positive aspects out of all these guys, because a lot of them are it's like one thing to like about them, like Jadarian Price, maybe projected draft capital and efficiency in college, Mike Washington, the size speed combination, but I think with Coleman, he can catch passes. He's 228 pounds. He's built like a bowling ball. Yeah. And the film was really good for him.
Really good.
I probably had my favorite film of anyone after Jeremiah Love.
Yeah. He can do it all, like the production. We've seen the production from him. I think that's really what separates him here, is that we have seen him produce, given a maximum role. So we like that.
I think in the right offense too, there could be some ceiling just in terms of touchdown scoring relative to some of these other guys that, again, he has to get used that way, but I think he can be productive in that way, which often does drive fantasy scoring. So yeah, I like Jonah Coleman. Bogman, you're up at 207.
I'm going to continue to beat the drum for my guy Skylar Bell here, and just he killed it at the combine too. I was already a Skylar Bell fan, and he crushed the combine. 5'11 and a half, so almost 6 feet tall. Ran a 4.4 flat, a 1.53 10-yard split, 41-inch vert, 11 and an inch broad, and just so many targets last year. 141 targets and 102 catches for 1,282 yards and 13 touchdowns. He played for UConn, so they're not playing, the best schedule here, but his yards per route run, which is a great stat, 3.13. Mekhi Lemon was also 3.13. Carnell Tate was 3.02. Nobody else that we have drafted was over. Well, let's see. Omar Cooper Jr. was over 2.5. He's the only other one, right? This guy wins contested catches at a 65% rate from last season as well. And I'm telling you, this guy is underrated. He is going to go, I think, a little bit too late. And he plays inside and outside. He plays out wide 65%, in the slot 35% of the time. Probably a little bit more of a slot guy in the NFL, but he can do both. I am super excited for Skylar Bell, and I'm going to continue pounding the table.
I knew you would probably be the one to take Bell.
He's your 2026 Cam Scatterbo Boggs.
100%.
Your clear flag blind guy.
Yep,
very
exactly.
Much. And that pre-injury, that worked out really well last year. So
it did.
Maybe you'll go 2 for 2 here. Fitz, 208.
All right, I'm going to take Chris Brazzell. So I actually had all three, wind up getting all three of the backs I have sort of in that same grouping with Malachi Fields, Jeremy Bernard, and Chris Brazzell. Brazzell, it's just the size-speed combination is so appealing. The Tennessee receivers are always a tough projection because that Josh Heupel system is just so unique and maybe not necessarily NFL friendly. But man, the raw tools are pretty intoxicating here.
What do you think about Brazzell, Bogman?
Brazzell I like, and he is not I feel like some people are scared off of him because the Tennessee offense is a little, basic, a little easy, and creates a lot of space for some of these guys. But I think Brazzell is a much better prospect than like a Jalen Hyatt, guys like that. But he had the same style of production. He's big and fast like Hyatt was. So I just think the history of wide receivers coming out of Tennessee and failing recently has kind of pushed people off of Brazzell. But I think he's much better than the other guys before him. And I love that combo. And we're playing upside here. So I like that call, Fitzy.
Yeah, 6'4" and 4.37 speed there's some upside for sure.
I'm continuing the receivers. Doesn't have the size, but does have the speed. Zachariah Branch here at 209. I've seen mocks that have him going in the NFL draft higher than I expected, given the way he was used and his sort of lack of production in college at both USC and Georgia. But if a team does say, like, hey, there's pedigree here, this was the number 1 receiver recruit, he's a top 10 overall recruit in his recruiting class, there's speed here, like, we can work with this, and makes an investment in the NFL draft higher than I expect, I'll be interested in at least taking a swing, particularly in this area of rookie drafts where, we know the depth dries up kind of quickly. So a bit of an upside swing just given the pedigree and speed. Don't love it, but I don't love a lot of people available on the board here. I would have taken Brazzell over him, for example. So I'll sort of settle with Branch here and the upside potential, and then send it to Bogman at the 210.
At 210, I'm going to take Ted Hurst, and in kind of the same deal that we talked about, size and speed, 6'4", very fast, good production at Georgia State, and you put on the film, and he looks great, contested catch guy as well, so, but really, you're playing for upside, and 6'4", running a 4.42 with a 1.55 10-yard split, 36.5-inch vert, 11 3-inch broad, like, these might not be the best wide receiver prospects that we've ever seen, but we have got some great athletes in this class for sure with a ton of upside, and he is definitely one of those. So A lot of contested catch attempts last year, 27, but he caught 16 of them, so about a 60% clip. So doesn't have to be a separator at his size.
Fitz, you're up at 211.
Look at Bogman caping up for all the small school receivers, man. UConn, Georgia State. I like it. Way to go, Boggs. All right, at 211, I am going to take Emmett Johnson, the running back from Nebraska. And it kind of in a way reminds me of Chase Brown, the way he just shouldered the massive workload in his final college season. They just ran him into the ground last year. So he had 251 carries for 1,451 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 46 catches in his last year at Nebraska. So I think I have dropped this stat before, but in the last 20 years, there have only been 2 Big Ten players with at least 1,400 rushing yards and 350 receiving yards in a single season. Saquon Barkley and Emmett Johnson. So pretty good company. Didn't test all that well considering he's a smaller guy, only goes about 200 pounds, ran a 4.56. So I think that was disappointing. I don't know if that slides him into day 3 instead of maybe the 3rd round, but this guy's slippery and elusive when you watch him play, man, and he can catch passes. So I think there are different ways that Emmett Johnson could fit in. I think he could be an early down guy in a pinch. I think he could be your 3rd down back in a pinch. So I like guys with multiple outs as far as ways to get on the field.
So Fitz at 211 takes Emmett Johnson. I'm taking Nicholas Singleton at 212. And then Bogman, you have it in the sheet already. You're taking Katron Allen at 301.
Wow.
How do you rank those 3 guys? Because there's been a bit of a gap. There were several receivers taken in a row since the last running back, Jonah Coleman, at 206. So when you get to Johnson, Singleton, Allen, how are you ranking those 3?
I think it's Johnson and Coleman way ahead of the Penn State guys. So, Nick Singleton, I think, is a very good athlete who's not a very good running back. And I think Katron Allen is a very good running back who's not a very good athlete. So I think you put them together and they're one good running back, but they're 2 separate people. So I do think that there's a bit of a gap between these guys, but I think we are kind of, we've cashed a lot of the great wide receivers here. Not all of them. We're still going to have some wide receivers, but we've kind of unloaded the inventory there. So now we're at the point where it's okay. Which of these running backs have upside? And I think, like you mentioned before, Worm, this is the way to do it, right? We lean on the wide receivers because they tend to last longer. And the running backs' careers are very, very short and can sometimes go nowhere. Like Zachariah Branch, maybe he just doesn't get on the field, right? But I think it's just as likely that he doesn't as these running backs. So I think that's just the range that we're in right now.
So like I said, at 212, I am taking Nick Singleton, somebody who, again, I don't love. I mean, it's kind of a common refrain at this point, but I think would have seen his stock rise if he hadn't broken his foot and had the opportunity to participate at the combine just because of how athletic he is. So kind of banking a little bit on that. Quite frankly, could have been a coin flip between him and Katron Allen. I think Bogman put it perfectly in terms of the breakdown between the two. I went with Singleton in this mock. I could see myself going with Allen in a future one or in the real thing. So again, kind of up in the air on that one, but I decided to go with Singleton here. Before we get to the rest of round 3, today's show is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet, Florida's sportsbook. March is here, and that means college basketball takes center stage. The stakes are rising, the shots are falling, and now is the time to hit the hardwood with Hard Rock Bet. Sign up today and double your winnings on your first 10 bets, max of $50. That's right, your winnings are doubled on your first 10 bets. So if you would have won $100 on your bet, make that $200. That's how you start March hot, and the welcome offer is just the tip-off. All tournament long, Hard Rock Bet is rolling out daily dance and boosts, featuring a live profit boost and a parlay profit boost every single day. More ways to shoot your shot, more ways to cash in with boosted odds. Don't sit on the bench. Download the Hard Rock Bet app today, and let's get the party started. Fitz, before we get to your pick at 202, who do you like better between Singleton and Allen right now?
Man. Singleton is just such a confounding prospect for me. Just when I saw him as a freshman, I figured he would be like a top 3 rookie pick when he eventually came out. He looked that good. And then there were other times where, Boggs has sort of hit on it before. I just think the vision is really suspect. But one of the best size speed guys in the class at running back. So he's really interesting. I don't know if you can coach vision. If there's some running back coach somewhere that can turn the light on for Nick Singleton. He's an interesting piece of raw clay for sure.
Yeah. All right. Who do you taking at 202?
I'm taking Antonio Williams, the wide receiver from Clemson. I like that he produced early in his college career. He had 56 catches as a true freshman at a big-time program. That's pretty exciting. And I like how good he is with the ball in his hands. Like, he looks like a running back when he has the ball. He's got 4.4 speed. So upside here for sure. He's I think I've got him ranked wide receiver 13. So in a pretty deep class. I know Boggs will yell at me, but I have him ranked ahead of Skylar Bell.
Boo! I think that they go in the same range.
Yeah, it's not a big gap.
And Antonio Williams was a much higher rated prospect coming out of high school.
He was.
All right. 203. I'm going to take, I believe Boggs' boy, Damon Claiborne, who you've mentioned before. I think we talked about him on the rookie rankings show last week. Fast back out of Wake Forest. Any thoughts on him, Bogman? I know he's a guy you like.
Yeah, I do. Very explosive, right? Like a very good running back to have to pick up big chunk gains against a tired defense late. Being a Steelers fan kind of reminds me of a Willie Parker type, that just burns you with speed, one cut and go. I definitely could see him being a good contributor, but also you just don't know. That's a guy that's going to get drafted in day 3, right? So where's he going to go? Is he going to go to San Francisco where running backs don't play if they're not named Christian McCaffrey? Or is he going to go where they mix up some running backs? Is he going to end up in damn Arizona where they're stockpiling running backs for no reason, right? So landing spot is going to mean a lot for these running backs.
Yeah, I believe the third fastest 40 time at the combine amongst running backs in this year's class. All right, Bogman, you're up with 304.
I'm going to take Bryce Lance here. Another, we're just going to take the athlete, right? We're going to take the guy who impressed at the combine and know that his draft stock is rising and hope that he gets picked, at the end of day 3 or early in day 4 so he has a chance to contribute immediately. I just think that Bryce Lance really showed out at the combine. I'm trying to find where I have his official numbers here. So, of course, he came in at 6'3", 204. He ran a 4.34 and a 1.49 10-yard split, 41.5-inch vert. Another guy with an 11-foot 1-inch broad. Like this dude is a great athlete, and he produced at North Dakota State, right? Over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. So a very, very raw prospect, kind of like his brother, but for wide receivers, they get a little more grace and time than some of these quarterbacks do. So Bryce Lance just for the upside here.
Lance off the board at 304. Fitz, you're up with 305.
Yeah, Boggs, it's funny how Bryce Lance has a very similar athletic profile to Christian Watson, another North Dakota State product.
I feel like that's... I didn't want to say it because I feel like that's hitting it on the head a little bit, but you're right. I think very similar prospects, and hopefully Bryce Lance can stay on the field and produce like Christian Watson, because Christian Watson would be one of the better wide receivers in the league if he could just stay on the damn field.
Yeah. So at 305, I am going to take Adam Randall, my second straight pick from Clemson. And so I guess I'm on the Clemson bandwagon. They need all the bandwagon jumpers they can after last fall and how that season worked out for the Tigers. I'm fascinated by Randall. I think he's a really intriguing dart throw at 6'3", 232 with 4.5 speed. And he's a late convert from wide receiver to running back. Sort of reminds me of the path that Antonio Gibson took as this big, pretty fast. He's not quite as fast as Gibson was, but like this big convert from wide receiver to running back who, man, if you can add a little polish to his game, you could really have something here. And let's not forget that Antonio Gibson actually was really impactful early in his career, although I think a lot of people regard him as a bust. But, man, Randall's just physical combination of size and speed and potential have me fascinated. And we know he can probably catch passes as a former wide receiver.
So Randall goes there to get halfway through the third round. I'm taking Jacoby Lane, the other receiver from USC, tall receiver, sort of like a deep threat using his size and not so much speed. I think middle of the third round. He's a player I actually kind of liked a lot like throughout the season. So I think middle of the third round is fine for him. There's not like a ton of helium around him or anything. There are some folks out there who like him, I think, a little bit more than you guys do. So Lane at 306. Bogman, you're up at 307.
Yeah, I like the Lane pick, Warren, because I think you're right. There seem to be camps for him. Either people are really in on Jacoby Lane or they are out and think he's just too slow. So I like that pick. Look, it's super flex, so I'm just going to throw a dart and take Garrett Nussmeier here, right? Like, we know he's not going to come into the NFL and start this year, but I do think that there are some scenarios where he could go. Arizona's still looking for a quarterback. Pittsburgh's looking for a backup. Are the Niners going to trade Mac Jones? If so, are they going with Curtis Rourke? I think Garrett Nussmeier could take over there, right? Drew Lock is very old. I guess they still have Jalen Milroe. But, Minnesota, who's backing up in Green Bay? I feel like there's lots and lots of spots where he could end up where he is, a twisted ankle or a blown out knee away from starting a chunk of games in the NFL. And, better tape than he had in 2025 in probably all three previous years that he played. But I do think that, Gus Meyer coming from he's a coach's son, knowing football very well. I think he's a guy that's going to hold a clipboard for a long time and may get a chance to start at some point. And the running backs are getting kind of ugly. There's a lot of wide receivers still left. So Garrett Nussmeier here for me in a super flex.
Fitz, what do you think about Nussmeier as the third QB off the board?
I'm okay with it. I think he could be a number 2 quarterback for a long time, and maybe he's a guy who at some point gets a chance to start.
Who are you taking here at 308?
I'm going to take Seth McGowan, sort of another flyer at running back. He's from Kentucky. Size-speed combo, again. So he's 6 feet, 223 pounds, and ran a 4.49 at the combine. I think Seth McGowan really does have some quality run vision. He makes some really good decisions when he has the ball in his hands. There's some off-field issues with McGowan. We'll see how that affects his draft stock. But late in the third round of what's kind of a weak rookie draft, this is a flyer I do not mind taking.
Yeah, what do you think about McGowan, Bogman?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect description. The perfect description is, look, this guy is probably way better than his stock because of his off the field stuff. So, you take him and is it a risk? Sure. But I think that it's a worthy risk at this point. So I think it's a good pick.
I'll take another quarterback here, just getting with it being super flex. Kind of a belief in Debro, who loves Cole Payton, dual threat guy, athletic quarterback, small school. Again, it's super flex, take swings. If it pans out, like you're getting a huge profit here, and if it doesn't, like it's back half of the third round in a weak draft, so it's not that big of a deal. So I think this is the right spot if you have some belief in an athletic quarterback to take a swing there. So I'm going Peyton. And Bogman, you're doing a similar thing here at 310.
Exactly the same thing. I'm going to take Taylen Green, and it's for the exact reasons that you said. Are there some wide receivers here that could provide to be useful? Sure. There are, but I'm not convinced that anyone is a sure thing. Maybe it's a little silly to take a guy like Taylen Green over some of these tight ends. I feel like there's, 6 to 7 of them, 7 or 8 of them, however you want to say it. Like there's a batch of tight ends here that are all kind of the same. So I can either pick one up off the wire if the draft is only 3 rounds, or if we are extending to 4 or 5 rounds, which we're not doing today. But if your draft is a little bit deeper, I just think that there's value on the board. So for me, give me the upside shot at a quarterback that's extremely athletic and hope that he can sit for a couple seasons like Jordan Love did, and become a little more accurate, because that is something you can teach, right? I feel like you can teach processing and all of that stuff, whereas vision for a guy like Singleton is kind of just a natural reaction. So maybe reps get him there, but I like taking a shot at what is by far the most athletic quarterback on the board here.
Fitz, do you have a preference between Payton and Green?
Slight for Payton because I don't know if Taylen Green can stay at quarterback. Like, I just don't know if there's enough arm talent, accuracy, basically. Like, just he's kind of all over the place. I don't think he can be an NFL quarterback, but he could take the Logan Thomas approach where they shift him to tight end. And like, I know Logan Thomas was not an impact guy in fantasy, but like played long enough in the NFL at tight end to get an NFL pension.
Yeah, let's call him Taysom Hill instead.
There you go.
Yeah, speaking of tight ends, Fitz, you're up at 311 and going in that direction.
I'm going to go with Max Clare, who's my tight end 3 in this class. He didn't put up big numbers for Ohio State last year, but you can understand why when he's playing alongside Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Better numbers the year before when he was at Purdue and had, I think it was 51 catches and like 650 yards. So 6'5", big wingspan, and he is a true pass-catching tight end. I think he's kind of an interesting prospect.
I'm also going with a tight end here to wrap things up in the third round, Sam Roush. Talking about, it's a real theme of my draft is guys who had really strong combine performances and who are very athletic. And again, sort of to Bogman's point that he's talked about a lot during this mock, just like taking the upside swings on athletes. We may not love the class, but there is real legitimate athleticism available here deep into the draft, and just taking those kind of upside swings. Could have gone with a guy like Trigg, Michael Trigg, if I was sticking with, really wanted to do a tight end here, but I'm just going with the guy who showed out at the combine. Is there anybody before we wrap up here, and I want to ask you both this, but I'll start with you, Bogman, anybody that you're really surprised didn't get drafted?
Surprised, no, but I do think, like, specifically with wide receiver and tight end, there's just a lot still out there, right? That you could, and at wide receiver we have, just based on mock draft database ranks, Brennan Thompson, Deion Burks, Kevin Coleman, CJ Daniels, Reggie Virgil. I like Josh Cameron. Tyron Montgomery is kind of being forgotten about because he didn't participate in the combine, right? At tight end, we still have Jolly, Endries, Delp, Royer, Wright, Koziol, Bentley. Like, there are so many guys left that are kind of in the same bucket. That's why I was reaching for quarterbacks at the end here, is because I think there's a lot kind of left that you can either pick up off the wire or, again, like if your draft extends a couple more rounds, there's more players to pick even in a weak class.
Any surprises for you, Fitz, or just any other takeaways?
Look, I know the raw tools are exciting for Colton Payton and Taylen Green, but I would still draft Carson Beck ahead of either of those guys. And I know that Carson Beck, like, there are reasons to, like, he got booed at the combine. The guy definitely has his haters. But man, like, these guys who have made a lot of starts for big time college programs sometimes make smoother transitions to the NFL than you would expect. Like Bo Nix, and yes, Bo Nix was a first round pick, and Carson Beck is not going to be that. But Brock Purdy was the last pick in the entire draft, and he had started a lot of games in big time conferences, and maybe Carson Beck can sort of follow the Brock Purdy path to NFL success. We'll see. I wouldn't bet on it, but I would take Beck before I took either of those guys.
How deep into the draft, Fitz, would we have to have gotten for you to take Drew Aller?
9th round.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Fitz didn't even have him ranked in quarterbacks. When I was putting our sheet together for last week, he didn't even have.
I've watched too many Penn State games where I'm sorry.
I know you just misspoke, Bogman, so I didn't correct you, but earlier you accidentally said this maybe a day 4 pick, and you meant day 3. Drew Aller in Fitz's eyes is a day 4 pick.
Yeah.
But hey, I mean, I could be surprised. I think on the Todd McShay show the other day, they were talking about him potentially being a day 2 guy. I don't know if I buy it, but someone might do it just on the potential and the arm strength. Maybe. Yeah,
they talk to people in the NFL, so they would know better also. But I just like, the guy has he looks like a movie star quarterback, right? Like 6'5", right, rocket arm, all that stuff. Just not a processor. So
yeah,
I'm not buying into Aller, but I'll take the Beck criticism because I think it's fair, Fitzy, because I do. You are correct, right? That's the old Bill Parcells rule is, if you have 30 starts in college, you're probably going to, we know it's going to be less of a process for you to start, in the NFL. So that's fair. And Carson Beck had a lot of success, and specifically in 2025, he cut those turnovers way, way down, even though he ended his season on a turnover, but he did cut them way, way down from his Georgia days. So yeah, we easily could have taken him, but again, upside. I'm just taking the crazy upside with the athleticism for Taylen.
We're definitely throwing darts in the 4th round of rookie drafts this year. So I'd rather throw a dart at Beck than at the tight end 6 in this class.
Agreed.
All right, we'll go ahead and wrap things up there. Thanks, everybody, for sticking around for this 3-round Superflex Dynasty rookie mock. Let us know all the picks that you would have maybe done differently, who you would have taken, who went too high, too low, all the stuff you would have changed up if you were participating in this. For Bogman and Fitz, I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.